Hello and welcome back. This is the continuation of the Capture Copy app application we were making in the previous video, which was the Capture Copy app UI. We did the UI, and this is part 2 where we're going to start on the code. Now to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to download some text, and I'm going to put this link inside of the description. And if you're following along with this, with the whole course outline, then there'll be a link in the resources that's provided with the course itself. But what we're going to do is we're going to copy this inside of our project, the project we were working on previously. This is my project folder. Let me go back one. This is my project folder. I'm going to go inside of there, and you can see I have all my files in here for my Visual Studio Code. If I go ahead and click this one right here, this .sln, which is my solutions file, it will open up all of the required files to start my application. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this right here, and it should open up Visual Studio, and click on this .sln and open that. And you should see everything like it was before. And here are our files and folders. If you opened it up again, where there was nothing there, all you have to do is double click on this main window or double click on this code to see that, and you can see these two tabs here. So last time we were working on the UI portion. Now what we're going to do is work on the code. And so for that, there's going to be a link in the description area below that's going to lead you to this page here. And all you need to do, well, the first thing you need to do is highlight all of this and copy it. So I'm clicking and dragging all the way down to copy that. Hit Control-C to copy. And then what I'm going to do inside of here is I'm going to select Control-A, select all, and I'm going to hit Control-V to paste. Now there's a couple of things I need to change. Number one, I need to change this name here. So what that's going to be is called the name of our application that we can see here, Captured Copy App. So that's going to go there. I'm going to make sure I save that. That's going to get rid of all the other errors. The next thing we need to do is add some code to our project related to this data.sqlite. Now the issue here is that we don't have that inside of our project. So that's why there's an error here. We have to add that inside of our project. And the way we do that is we go over here and we right click on our project, and then we want to go to manage NuGet packages. And what this is going to do is going to allow us to download some packages that's available on the marketplace. And there's a ton of things that you can get from here. When you first open it up, it looks empty, only because we have nothing currently installed, like third-party data or frameworks installed. So what we're going to do is go from installed to browse. Inside of the search area, we're going to type SQL, and we're going to look for two SQL components. First, we're going to look for the core, and you want SQLite PCL raw dot bundle, and you want the dot green there. So I'm going to select this right here. This is what we want typed in there, and this is what you should see here. Now you may be wondering, why are there two here? Well, if you look with this one selected, it says latest stable 2.10 version, and the fact that this one right here is the raw EX, and then this one is the raw.bundle, and it's the 2.1.6 version. So you always want to look at these labels carefully. You don't want to get confused because they mostly look the same. So here's the one we want, and then I'm going to go over here and install. Now the next thing I'm going to need is Microsoft's data SQLite. So again, I go to the .NuGet package, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to well, first of all, I can just go SQLite like that, and then I'll see right here Microsoft data SQLite core. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to install. and agree to the terms. And then after you do that, you can go back here and you see we don't have an issue. From there, you can now go back here and you can go here to the installed. I'm going to remove this filter. I can go to the installed and we can see that these two are installed into our project here. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and read these notes that I put up here. They're for your information and to help you move along with this tutorial. And then I'll give you some information about what these things mean. So you can go ahead and read those and basically what they mean. For instance, like right here, this is the name of your project. And that's why we had to change the name when we pasted it, the code in. We had to change the name of our namespace. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and start declaring some variables that we know we're going to need. Now there's a couple of variables we're going to need. We're going to need a timer, and we're going to need that timer, and it's going to be from this tick. We're going to need that timer to constantly check to see if we hit Control C on our keyboard. So no matter when we hit Control C, we want some code to run. So we're going to need a variable to hold that information. Look at this note here. It says declare your variables here. So I'm going to go down one and put that there in case I have some more variables to declare, which I do, which is going to be our database that we're going to be saving all our information with. We're going to use the SQLite database. And so we have to create a connection string. And to do that, we call private, and we're creating a variable here, and it's going to be a string, like I said. And we're going to call that underscore, we're going to call that connection string. So that's a connection string, and that's going to equal, and I'm going to put double quotes right away, and I'm going to close that off right away so I don't forget. And that's going to equals data source, like that. This is for our database, and we're going to say no spaces actually, equals so we'll call it is database.clipboard.db. This is going to be our database that we store all our information in. And then what we're probably going to need is another variable. It's going to be a string, and that should be the last clipboard text. And we're going to be using this to save all our previous clipboard text that we had, so it's going to be in memory. And we're going to make that equals null for now, meaning there's nothing there. Nothing exists inside of that. So we have our three variables here that we're declaring because we know we're going to declare it. One for the timer, one for the connection string for the database, and one for memory to store our last selection. So now that we have our variables, and those variables are at the top of our class, one thing needs to be clear here. We don't want to write any of our code here per se. We're going to write our code inside of our functions here. So this is our main window function, which means when the window begins, when the window starts, this is what's going to run. This is the name of our code, and this function is called the constructor. It means because it's the same name in C# as the main class, this is the function that will start and initiate everything. So the first thing that we need to do here, as you can see here, this is our private variables. We've already done that. And over here, what we want to be able to do is initialize our timer. So I'm going to say underscore timer equals a new dispatcher timer. It helped me out with that anyway. Now, what does this do? This creates a new dispatcher timer right here. We first declared this variable being a dispatcher timer type, and now we're going to actually create a new dispatcher timer by using the new keyword. And what I can do from there is I can say underscore timer dot intervals, and I can say that interval equals, let's say, I can say time span, right, dot from seconds, from days, from hours, from milliseconds, right? So I can do something like this, and that will work. And then I can go underscore timer dot ticks and say how often it's going to tick. I can keep on doing that. Underscore timer dot this, underscore timer dot that, and I can go down the list of setting all these attributes for the timer. But one better way to do this, and it might save you some space. Instead of making this extra line, what I can do is I can get rid of this right here, this argument area, and I can put these brackets here, and then go under here and add whatever I want for the timer. Now, this bracket here must be closed with a semicolon. Let's see, intervals. Now, you see, I can access interval directly because I'm inside of this timer here instead of saying timer.interval. And I can say time span the same way I said before. And I can say dot from seconds. And then I can add this as 1 second. And now you'll notice this ends with a comma and not a semicolon because I'm inside of this object here. And I can set a lot of things inside of this object directly this way. So that's an example of 2 ways you can actually set the timer dispatcher timer, sorry. So now the next thing we need to do is go ahead and start setting this timer.tick. So whenever every second this is going to run, we want to set it to this function right here. So we're going to go into here and I'm going to underscore timer. So this will run the timer underscore tick. That's down here. Okay. So now the next thing we need to do is start that timer. Right now, we have everything set up, but it will not run. And I'm going to show you it won't run. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to put a console write line. Oops, sorry. So I'm putting a console.write line. Well, actually, for this version of Visual Studio, we're going to have to use... you can try your console.write line, but it may not work. So I'm going to run this, hit F5. And inside of your... If you don't see it, you go over here to the output window, this tab here, while the application is still running in the background, as you can see. That's our application still running, but here's our application IDE. In the output window, you should see this ticker going. But as you can see, there's nothing down here. Even if you were to clear this, I'm going to go over here and clear all of the output in the debug window. There's nothing there. So what you may have to do, depending on the version that you're using, you may have to just say debug.writeLine. So this debug right here. So if you don't see debug, like let's say if it looks like it's not working like mine is, you're going to go ahead and put your mouse over it. You should see that little light bulb right here. Click on that and click Using System Diagnostics. Once you do that, up here at the top, it's going to write this System Diagnostics as the using because you need to use that library in order for this to work. And now when we run this, we should see this tick inside of the console window every second. So I'm running it again. I go down here in my console window. I can go over here and clear everything. And you can see every second, it's ticking. And it's going every second. So it's checking every time for 1 second. So I can go ahead and stop that. So now we have the base of our application working. So now all I have to do is get rid of this test. This is a little test here. And now we're going to open the connection to our database, and we're going to create the tables to our database. So I can remove this because that's currently what we're doing, or I can just leave that there and start typing it. And what we're going to use is what's called a using statement. And that using statement will open and close the database without us having to do that manually, which is a great thing because before this was the case, we had to do all that manually. And I'm going to open and close these parentheses. We're going to make a variable in here, and we're going to make connection. And we want that connection to be a brand new SQL connection. So we're going to say a new, it equals, this variable equals a new SQLite connection. And as you start typing, you should see it helping you because we have the libraries in there. And then this new SQLite connection takes in we're going to bring in the variable. We need to give it a string, a connection string. And if you remember, we created that connection string up here. So we want to take that and put it inside of here. So now we're ready to actually use our using statement because we have the main component right here of what we want to use and the database we want to open and close when we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and put these brackets here, and I don't have to put a semicolon there. I'm going to go make some space there and go inside of here. And here's where I'm going to first open my connection. So using this variable right here, which is the connection to our database, we're going to say connection, and we're going to open that connection. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create a command. And you already see here, it's literally typing that for us about the command, but we don't want it this way, right? We want it something like this. We want the var and we want command. Yeah, we want to create our own command variable, and that variable will equals a connection, and we're going to create the command from that connection. So it will equal this, which is this variable here, our connection to our SQL, and it's going to call a function inside of there called create command. So now we have our command. Now let's talk about this for a second. What is an SQL command? So to put simply, like we have code that works with our application and it works with the front end, right? We write, sorry, front end here. We write the code to make things happen. You can understand an SQL command like code that makes the database do stuff, like to search the database. A really good example, and first of all, just to understand, SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a structured query language that's used for database and traditionally is used for relational databases. But what we want to do is look at a standard, let's say, view of this. I'm going to create this comment here just so you can see what I mean. And normally it would do something like this. Select, and you could say star, which means select from everything. Select everything from a table called customers. Let's say, yeah. So this select everything from customers. What this will do is we'll go inside the customers table and it will select everything and return that information. So this is how SQL command would look. Also, if you wanted to do something like this, let's say. So you can select the name and age from the customers table, and then you can be more specific where age is between 25 and 35. So it goes to that database, that massive database, and it only returns these records. So that's what a database command is. And because we're creating a database through our database string going inside of here, and we have this variable to operate what we're going to do, open a database and so on and so forth and create commands, we're going to now use that to create a command on our database to actually create the table itself. And so we're going to start that off right below this. We're going to say the command, and we want that command string that it was just text. And we want that to equals, we're going to put double quotes here, and I'm going to close these quotes off. Now, what I want to do in front of these quotes, I want to put the @ sign there. Now I can go ahead and make some space like this, and inside of this area here that I just made the space with, I want to start typing my command. So I can do something like this. I'm going to create a table, and I want that table to check. I want it to check in if the table exists. So if not exist. So I'm checking to see if the table exists, and I only want this to run if the table doesn't exist. And then I'm going to give the table the name, clipboard items. So that's the name of my table, clipboard items. And now I'm going to, this is a parentheses here. And inside that parentheses, I'm going to make some space. I'm going to push over here, make some space. Okay. And I want to put a semicolon there. Now, make sure that you have all this laid out this way, because if not, then your database is going to come back with errors. So, and you won't know what's going on. And so I'm going to say text. So I'm creating this field, text, and it will take in text not null. So which means that I have this text field and it cannot be null. We have to have some information in that text. So we made one record that we'll be saving all our links to. And from there, we have this closed here. Now, right below this, I want to go ahead and execute that command. So I say command and close that off. And then from there, let's see, just closing this space here. From there, we have our database connection string and our database connection that's ready to go. So now we're at this point where we're going to load our data. So what we're saying is, if we start our application and there was some previous data saved in the database, we want to load that data inside of the application, right? So you want the user to open up the application and load that data inside the application once it starts. So that's why we're going to go ahead and start off with this. And that's where the select statement will come in. So we're going to go down to our load data function over here. And you notice it's sort of grayed out slightly. This just means this function is not being used. So in order to use this function, I'm going to take the name and the parentheses, and I'm going to come right under this here, and I'm going to type that there. So load data will run as soon as it gets past all of this. It checks and see if that database exists. If it doesn't exist, it's going to create that database, and then it's going to load the data. So initially, there won't be anything in there. So I'm going to go down here, and the first thing we need to do when we load the data, again, we have to open a connection to our database. Open, execute, and read. So let's go here. First, let me open the database. And we're going to start that again with the using statement. And inside that using statement, remember, in that using statement, I have these parentheses and I have these brackets down here. Now, to get that quickly, all you need to do is type using and hit tab twice, and it's going to write that for you. And inside of there, I'm going to create a variable, and that variable is going to be connection, and you've seen this part before, so I'm not going to be too slow on this. It's going to be a new SQLite connection. And that connection inside of there will have an argument of underscore connection string. And we're going to go in here and go ahead and we're going to open that connection. And then we're going to go ahead and create our command just like what we did before. So it's a little bit faster now because we've done it before. So we're going to say var, var command, and we're going to go ahead and create that command. And then we're going to go down here. We're going to say command.text equals double quotes, semicolon to set it all up. And we're going to put that @ sign there. And now I'm just going to make some space here. Something like this. Now, if you want to, you can put this on the next line as well, just so it can look better, you know, aesthetics. And then I'm going to type select and then text, and then right below that, just for aesthetics. It doesn't matter if I wrote it in one line, by the way. It'll still work. From, and then where is it coming from? It's coming from that table here. Clipboard items. Select the text from here. Now, after it does that, I need to be able to read this information. So we're still within this using statement here. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a using statement within this using statement, okay? Because we now want to read what it brings back. So I'm going to type using, tab twice. Inside of there, I'm going to say a var, and I want that to be whatever reader. This is going to be my reader, and it's going to read the command the command's execute reader. So that's going to equal command.execute reader, and I open and close that. Now, whatever comes from here, from this command, it's going to work within this area over here. And I want to make a loop for while read equals read. What does that mean? That means as long as there's data that's being read, I want you to do this. This is a while loop, which means it's just going to keep on doing it. For instance, here is a loop that goes on forever, because true is true. So as long as it's true, it's going to keep on looping. So as long as this is true, reader.read, as long as there's something to read from here, go ahead and keep on doing this. If you look over here, in essence, this is kind of a loop, but is a timer, which means it's going off of your clock, your computer clock. So it's going to keep on going, right? For every second we put. Here is a loop that has an end, which means it's going to do it for a certain amount of time and then it's going to stop. And we want that end because we only want it while it's reading. So while it's reading, what we want to be able to do is create a variable, and we want that variable to be called text, because that's what we're going to be picking up. We want it to be readable, and we want to go ahead and get the reader dot get string, and we want the first index of what's read. That's what that 0 means. So here we're going to now call the items, and we're going to add that to the clipboard items. And if you remember here, this is where we were going to add those items. So now what we have to do, where do we want to add this? We want to add this in the clipboard items list box. And right now, if you look at our interface, we go here to our interface, we don't have a list box in here, and we definitely don't have a list box called clipboard items. Nowhere in here. See, we don't have a list box in here. So what we want to do is now add a list box where we're going to be putting the list of all our stuff in there. So I'm going to go here to my toolbox. I'm going to pin that. I'm going to go over here to the list box. I'm going to drag it over here. It's not where I want it. So I'm going to go down here and either take this area and drag it, put it underneath the dock panel, or drag this, start dragging the edge. I'm going to start dragging this edge like this to the edge. Once I do that, I can decide where I want to dock it. I dock it below, and then I can make some space, something like that. And the other way was to put it underneath there or put it in the stack panel. So now the next thing I want to be able to do is name this list box. So I'm going to select the list box right here. I'm going to go over here to the properties right here, and I'm going to give that a name. That's going to be called clipboard items. And keep in mind, we're using camel casing. So make sure clip is capitalized and items is also capitalized with a capital I. So this part's going to get a little tricky because even though we have this set, it may not exactly work the way we think it's going to work, where we can just add stuff to the clipboard items. But let's see what happens here, okay? So we're going to go ahead and leave it like this. We're going to save that. We're going to go back to our code here. And then we're going to go ahead and add that part of the code that we were missing to add this loop, the information in that loop, inside of the clipboard. So we're going to start typing clipboard items, and it should find it because we just created that. And we're going to put the text inside of clipboard items.items.add, and we want to add whatever we get out of there into that list. Now for the bulk of what we're going to be doing. Right here, we need to check the clipboard for any text that comes in. If it does, then we're going to save that information, inside of our database, and we're going to present it inside our list box. And then we're going to update everything here, update our labels and stuff. Now, before I do anything, I want to run my application to make sure I'm not getting any kind of errors or anything. So let me go ahead and run that. And everything seems fine. There's no errors or anything. So now we can go ahead and move forward. And as you see, when we run it, there's no problems with the database, nothing like that. We don't have anything in here right now, but we're going to put something in there in the next video. So in the next video, I think, because this video has gone on too long, we're going to go ahead and start actually doing this part of the timer ticker. So we are now ready to code our timer tick. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys next time.